So for those of you who are out there, thanks for joining us once again. It's Lindsay Jenrick here and Patricia Obi, Canada's lightweight women's double from the Rio Olympics, now retired. And we're on our second podcast here with Sports. And as a bit of a follow-up from last month, which was about the World Rowing Championships and athletes competing in that regatta, which was the culmination of a year of hard work. We're going to talk today about disappointments in sport, some of the ones that we've experienced ourselves and how we overcame them and what it means to move on. So, Patricia, I guess we could start off with just explaining, maybe we could each kind of tell everyone what one of our bigger disappointments were in our rowing careers, kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure. I think pretty easily the biggest disappointment I ever experienced was the 2012 Olympic Games, where we came 7th. That was not that fun. And I think that one of the reasons why this was such a big disappointment was because it was the first one for me. I'd only been rowing for a couple of years, but every time I'd gone to a regatta, I'd come home with a medal, which was at the time, I thought was a bit more normal than it actually is. So to have the first time to not get a medal and not even get to race the A final, be at the Olympic Games, that one was really tough for me to get over.
So it's almost like it wasn't necessarily an absolute in terms of ranking yourself and being disappointed. It was like a relative kind of feeling, which I feel like athletes probably do that all the time. Like you don't, you're just gauging yourself based off the last thing. And if the last thing has always been good, then even a pretty decent result can feel really bad if you're gauging that relative off of all your experiences.
Yeah, totally. I think in training, each time you do something, you're trying to get better and better and better. So each stroke you take, you're trying to improve on the next stroke. And so then you start doing that with results. And when you're winning silver medals, it's pretty hard to go up from there to keep improving off of that. And I think it's natural that you're going to have good performances and bad performances. But when I had only ever had good performances, that one slightly off performance seemed astronomical.
Right. And then I also think though, we would both kind of say that, well, I know I definitely say this. I feel like you're similar in that in all those moments that you have that are like that disappointing experience in London. And then for me, I'd say, it backdates another quadrennial to missing out on making the boat for Beijing and by literally hundredths of a second. That was the first time I'd really tried out for a team and something I'd set my sights on and didn't make it. But then I look back now after our journey through to Rio and how we went about getting that medal, all the learning that went on. And I'm thinking, man, that was really brutal at the time, but do I regret it at all? Not at all. I feel like it always turns around in the end to be something that you realize you actually needed to get to that end point.
Totally. I felt I always thought that way in my life and in my rowing career prior to 2012. I remember I'd maybe I don't even know, not get the erg score I wanted on one erg test and be like, oh, well, that's great because that's going to help me on my next erg test because I'm going to have learned something. But that's why it actually hit me really hard in 2012 after the regatta. I could not for over a year see what was positive about it. How could this possibly turn into something positive? I just can't see it. And it took me, I would say 2 years until you and I got back in the boat together in 2014 and won a medal there. I was like, now I know why we came 12th or why we came 7th in 2012. And I really distinctively remember thinking that day in, day out, how can this possibly be a benefit to me? These negative feelings I have. Yeah, it was really weird. I don't know. Did you feel like that after, how long did it take you after, would you say that 2008 was your biggest disappointment or 2012?
I think it's not really the biggest in the terms of the gravity of it, because I was just starting off. It was my first attempt at an Olympic Games and I knew I'd have more. So I definitely agree with you that the 7th in 2012 felt heavier. It felt like a heavier burden and heavier disappointment because it was more meaningful to me in the sense that I thought I was going to retire, but it wasn't. The reason why the 2008 one stands out to me is kind of the same reason the 2012 one stands out for you, in that it was kind of that first big one. Yeah. Like, whoa, these like really bad moments can happen. And that's an interesting thought to think that, you know, I had mine in 2008, 4 years before we got together and were rowing. So it's like, it almost felt like disappointments that we experienced together were different marginally, because it's like I just been having disappointments for longer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. Like,
it's almost more about like how many times have you had to go through it is almost how much it hurts in a way.
Yeah,
and, sure. Well, I was thinking that kind of relates to, like, I kind of think about, you know, all the time, like my parents, they're not, you know, it's exceptional athletes. So maybe one of them or both of them could be if they just had the right opportunities, who knows, but they're not. And I think, well, what is it? Like, what's my thing? Like, how is it that I got so far in rowing? And I honestly think it comes down to exactly this, which is why I think it's such a great topic we're doing, is because it's transferable to life, in that what my parents just didn't allow me to stop something because I was disappointed about it, or they didn't really grade successes too high and quote unquote failures so low that they weren't things that I could just kind of, it could happen and I could move on. And I think the biggest thing was that there's always a very conscious awareness about, I don't remember necessarily the things they said, but this awareness of at least learn from it, right? So, you know, that's going to happen, but if you learn from it, then something will be better in the future, because you're going to take that information, you're going to utilize it in a productive way. And I think maybe that's the thing that they gave me. That was my thing. Yeah. I mean, I see similar qualities in you for sure.
Yeah. I think that, like, I don't know where I got this, maybe from my parents, maybe from, I don't know, a friend or something along the way, but that idea that it's not really a mistake if you learn from it. So in order, say something happens and you're like, ooh, I kind of messed up, I don't really feel good about that result or that, even that thing I did, it's not really an issue until you don't learn from it. So you can kind of go through life with this mindset where you're just coming to all these learning experiences instead of making all these mistakes. And I guess that's kind of where maybe a definition of resilience, which I think is paramount to, well, research says it's paramount to happiness. And then in terms of sport, I think it's paramount to success. Would you agree with that, Lindsay?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, like, until we've had conversations about this outside of sport, and mostly in our retirement even, like, I can't even think about us necessarily talking about that a whole lot while we were rowing. It's almost like a quality that, take it for granted is not the right description, but it's almost like I just, what's the words I'm looking for? Almost just, I think, it was so there. It was like I didn't try for it, so I wasn't aware that that's the kind of thing that was happening. But when I look back, I'm like, well, for sure, I was resilient.
Yeah, I think I saw, instead of calling it resilience while I was an athlete, I thought of it more as critical analysis, of what we were doing. So I think one moment that really stands out to me, that I was like, oh, we were great at critically analyzing what went wrong, which really was resilience, was in 2015 when we were in the C final at the World Cup 3. So we were, for the viewers out there that probably don't know this story, we were, a long list of events led us to a very poor result at World Cup 3 in 2015. In 2014 at the Worlds, we had been silver medalist. And then at our next big regatta we raced the following year, we were 14th, which means you race a C final. It was both of our worst results ever. And it was 6 weeks before the Olympic qualification regatta, the World Championships that year, where we had to become top 11 in order to qualify for the Olympics. And so it wasn't looking great for us. We come 14th and we fly home the next day. And before we did that, we got a day off.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget that wonderful day up Mount Pilatus.
Yeah, we were in Switzerland and we hiked up Mount Pilatus and spent about 8 hours discussing what went wrong, why we were in the final. Yeah, it was. I don't even know if I took in any of the view. I was just like, why were we in a final? And so then the next day we fly home and we're on a 8-hour flight from Switzerland to Ontario, and we sat down together and wrote a 14-page document on what went wrong and what we needed to do to improve and how we were going to qualify for the Olympics in 6 weeks' time. And a lot of it, we broke it down to things that were in our control and things that were out of our control. Although when I say out of your control, I think sometimes as athletes, we think things are out of our control.
Yes, good point.
But they actually are somewhat in our control. It just depends how much we want to fight for what we believe in, or maybe work the system, whatever you need to do to take something that's out of your control and bring it into your control is a skill, I think, that is important. And that's part of just having that growth mindset of, this can improve.
And that was some of the things we had to do, was trying to transfer some of those things from the out of control list to the in control list. Yeah,
which is more challenging. The things that are in control, okay, maybe I need to train harder. Maybe I need to spend a little bit more time with a sports psych or make a few lifestyle changes. Those things are easy, but the ones that were hard for us were okay, we didn't really jive with our coach. So how do we change that? That was out of our control, what coach we were assigned, and how can we bring that into our control? Which in that case involved talking to the administration. That stands out as, compared to 2012, how we dealt with that was pretty different. Yes. I mostly
we'd just go away into life, as opposed to, working very hard to analyze and adjust behavior and move forward.
Yeah. Whereas in 2012, maybe because as a combination, we hadn't fine-tuned that skill of resilience, of bouncing back.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's like a little bit of it's just knowledge-based too, right? Like we kind of reached a point where we really knew a lot about the sport, and most importantly, we knew what our bodies and our minds needed. So it was like there was we had weapons in our arsenal, if you will, in terms of being able to write that document, because we were able. Knowing what's a mistake is only possible if you really know what it should be.
Yeah. So you could almost say that.
Like, I felt like in 2012 there were mistakes that I realized we were making as we were going into the regatta that I wasn't actually seeing as mistakes in that moment.
Yeah. When I reflect back on it, we made a lot of mistakes. And then I guess the ability to analyze our mistakes in our most recent disappointment, which I would say was in 2015, it came from the 2012 disappointment and the lessons we had to learn there. So I guess the more disappointments you make, the better you'll be able to analyze and bounce back from future mistakes.
Yeah, you become educated.
Yeah, a disappointment educated athlete.
I think that's really the key to sport, is that you've got to go through those processes, and there's athletes probably, I'm assuming, out there that, they kind of have a bit more of a breezy pathway. Maybe they're super, super, super talented, really naturally gifted, and things just come that little bit easier for them. But I do think that it's a pretty big stretch to say that no athlete doesn't ever experience some kind of major disappointment or something that they need to bounce from. And I think that the what makes victory in the end so sweet and very, very possible, most importantly, is analyzing those disappointments, understanding where they came from, why it happened, and moving forward in a way that's educated, intelligent, and analytical. And if you make it, I think that's what the thing about that document was that we really made it a business. It was very, very factual. And I remember that's the thing that stood out to me was in our kind of our darkest results moment where we were extremely emotional, we managed to create 14 pages of fact. And I think that's really the impressive thing about what we did there.
Yeah, well, I think that comes there, as we're talking about this, it's making me realize that there's a certain level of disconnect you almost need to have with yourself. And right. Lindsay, we've talked about this, like what's so important is to be honest with yourself. And you have to be very self-critical to be a successful athlete. But if you're always just beating yourself up and being self-critical without kind of that factor of resilience or self-belief or just kind of that slightly removed, like, this is me as an athlete. I'm not saying I'm a bad person. This is me as an athlete. And I didn't perform well. And this is why. And this is how I'm going to perform better. It's just slightly removed. You can't take your results personally, even though they're your results. You kind of have to take them, like you said, like a business. And if you can do that, I think you can more honestly analyze what went wrong and then therefore learn more and improve your results forward.
I'd also say that's how you make successful teams. Like, think of how many of our kind of negative interactions with people within our pathway, usually it stemmed around the inability to do just what you described, right? Because on an elite performance pathway, there's going to be a lot of critical thinking and there's going to be a lot of required, like, you have to do better kind of moments. And so if you're surrounded by people that are trying to help you who don't take on that mentality, then it can be a very negative environment. And I think that's something that you and I had in our own little bubble in 2015 was this ability to kind of speak to each other and about each other in that business-like way and not be offended and make it personal. And unfortunately, we were existing within a system around us that we had to kind of work against in terms of that. But then when we got that kind of environment of people around us in 2016, the outcome was an Olympic silver medal. So it shows you that mentality is not only important for your own like growth mindset and personal growth, but it's also how you make functioning and successful teams.
Yeah, totally. One thing when I was talking to Will a little bit before. Will's my boyfriend, also a rower, for those of you who don't know. He set the world record in 2012 in his 8, and I was saying that we were going to talk about disappointing results, and he brought up this world record that he set and said, well, actually, sometimes even positive results require reflection, because he said that, they set a world record a few months before they got a silver medal at the Olympics, and he says, okay, well, we didn't reflect at all. We said, okay, that's a great result. I don't feel any emotional pain right now, so why do I need to critically analyze what we did? Right. And therefore
they don't know why they were the fastest boat in the world at one point.
Yeah, so I thought that's another, like, we were talking about disappointments today, but because so much of talking about disappointments is talking about critical reflection, I think that it needs to happen on both ends. And I know that's something that I think we did a really good job of when we won Lucerne before the Olympics, the World Cup 3. Is making sure we analyzed how that race went, what worked and what didn't work. And I think had we not done that, I was actually quite scared that we may not reflect on it and therefore move backwards or not be able to build off of that. And unfortunately, we didn't race the Dutch at that regatta, so we didn't get to see if we improved off of that. But we did open the gap up on the other crews that we raced at that World Cup, and I think that came from taking that critical approach, even when we won. So
that's an excellent point.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to add, Lindsay? We should think about wrapping up here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was, some good stuff there. And I would hope that, this isn't an advice column or anything, but, I would hope that people who listen would kind of relate in some way to what we said about resilience and about analyzing your behaviors and using that analysis to better yourself. And that doesn't have to be in sport. And I think that's one of the things I struggle with now in life, is that I have this ability to do that, but the grand prize at this point in time is not an Olympic medal. So, my motivation to operate in that manner is a lot less. And I kind of, to be honest, I see the effects of that. But, maybe that's the topic for next time. But, I just hope that everyone got something about this topic and can translate it somehow into what's going on with their lives right now.
Yeah, for sure. All the skills I learned in rowing, I'm just trying to figure out how to apply them to life. And that is definitely one of them is, I get a bad grade. Well, now how did I analyze a bad performance? Let's look back on my notes and try that out with school in a new avenue.
Yeah. Sport's so finite. It's actually very easy to do in sports.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good topic for next time.
Yes, maybe. Okay, well, thank you for listening. And for more conversations from the world of women's sport, there's articles, videos, and blogs, and over 700 podcasts on withsports.com. We're also on social media at withsports on Twitter, and we have a Facebook page, which Lindsay and I discussed maybe posting a few Facebook Live videos on there over the next month or so. So keep your eyes open for that. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.